Welcome back to the building of the Artesania Latina hermione. This is where I'm up to from finishing the planking of the upper half in the previous stage. And now the next part is to start making the Gunports. So to prepare everything, what I did was to give the upper planking sanding with 80 grit. Haven't left it completely perfect, just sanded the sides down so it makes drawing the gun ports much easier. So with that done, the kit comes with a pattern to make the gun ports both for the right and the left. And this brought in the first problem to creating them. When I add the templates, once I cut them out, to the sides of the ship, it turns out that they don't fit exactly where they should. According to the plans, the bottom edge should end up at the edge of the last plank here, all down the ship, and matching the numbers of the frames with the frames themselves. Turns out that when I did that, the front of the gun ports did not fit at all. So I decided to redo them from scratch. So what I did was I went ahead and created a little jig to mark the top of the deck on the outside. This has a bit of pencil, a mechanical pencil, and I just ran it through the inside, and then I created a line on top where the top plank finishes. Once I did that, I calculated more or less the average of where the gun port should go, and it turns out it's 7 centimeters from the top of the deck. So once I did that, I could create another line going parallel using a piece of planking from the kit, small one, very flexible, and I just taped it down and then drew the line all the way down, and that gave me the correct height where all the planks should go. Once I did that, I also went ahead and put the template on to mark where each one of them should be going. And once I finally did that, I used a cutout from the template and just taped it into place and then drew around it to be able to create the gun port outlines. And this is the result. This means that they're all symmetrical and at the correct height and hopefully in the correct location. The last thing that I also did was at the front, since I still have to sand down and cut down the planking to the edge underneath the deck, I created another jig from the same width of the planking and just put it against the edge and drew a line. When I take off the planking, the upper deck, I'll be able to sand this down and then concentrate on making the gun port holes. So the next stage now is to take off this upper planking, this upper deck, and that will be pretty easy because it's just nailed down with the nails from the kit, and with a pair of pliers I'll just pull them out and I'll be able to have it all set to work on the gun ports themselves. Okay, it's time to cut out the gun port holes all along the side of the hull. There are 15 total on each one of the sides. And the first step is to sand the inside of this part that will be seen through the bottom and the upper deck. To do this, I've just used a tool from Amati, which is a very thin sort of sandpaper covered pen, and that way I could actually reach the edges all the way to the bottom. Once I did that, I drew a cross right in the middle of the box so I know where the center is. So once I did that, I will start making holes with different size drills, starting with a 0.8, going up through 1, 1.5, 2, and all the way to 5. This way I'll have a clear hole right in the middle. The first couple of them I can do with a hand drill, and the last couple of them I will do with a normal drill. It can also be done with a Dremel, and that way I will clear out the hole. Once the hole is made, what I start doing is with an X-Acto knife, I start squaring off the hole, cutting through to make it square and as close to the lines on the edges as possible. So, once I get to this point, leaving about 1 millimeter from the edges, I grab a file and I start filing down the sides until I get close to the edges of the square that I've drawn. To make sure that they all line up, I'm making sure that the main line that I follow is the upper one, which is the one that I drew all the way down the ship, to make sure that it's all lined up. to make sure that I don't overdo the square, I've done a little template using the windows from the original template that came with the kit, and every once in a while I test it out until I cut out enough material for this whole thing to fit in. So I'll continue on filing, and when I'm done I will show you the result. So I finished sanding it with a coarse flat file, and to finish off the corners I used a square file just on each one of the edges to make sure that it's nice and square, and then finer file with a flat edge and sort of triangle so the edges are pretty sharp, and finished it off. All the time I was double checking that I wasn't making the hole too large with the template that I made, and as you can see it fits in and out pretty easily, so that's the size it should be. Finally, what I did was to file down the inside edge to get rid of all the excess that came out from the end, and as well as the retaining wall on the inside from the point and the drill hitting it. It gets a bit dented, so I just file it down a little bit, although it won't be very seen and it will be painted black, so it shouldn't matter. So with all this done, I will continue on and make the other 14, and that should take care of making the gun ports. All the gun ports are now cut out. I finished both sides of the model. Everything came out correctly, except some of them are slightly larger, but I think that can be fixed when the edge border of a plank of 0.5 goes in. I think that can be fixed later on, but aside from that, they're pretty much identical and in line with the upper deck that I had actually designed originally. One note is make sure to cover the lower deck with some sort of cardboard, since when drilling through and cutting them, there could be certain marks left over. In my case, a couple of them on this side, but thankfully it's where the cannons will go, so they'll be covered up by them. But had I used a piece of cardboard, I only used a piece of paper, so better cardboard to avoid those scratches. So now on to the next stage, which is to paint the inside of the gun ports that will not have a real cannon. And to do that, I'll just use some black paint and then varnish them in matte, so therefore the light won't reflect, and it will give the illusion of not being able to see inside the ship. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll show the result. So here is the result after having painted the inside of the hull black. Everything inside the gun ports is completely black. What I went ahead and did is followed the painting all the way down to the bottom of the false keel. That way, even if you look down at an angle, you still cannot see the inside. When I plank the rest of the exterior all the way to the bottom, I'll also paint the inside, so that way you will only see a black area no matter how you look inside. What I've also gone ahead and done is to paint the inside parts right here, which will be seen through the grill from the deck. This way it will also seem as if it's dark. And finally, the part of the back of the transom where the windows will be located, I've also painted it black. It was just normal Vallejo black paint and then 2 coats of matte varnish, and that has taken care of the finish of the ship. So with all this done, I'll go on to the next part, which will be adding the transom and continuing the planking of the hull, and that will be in the next stage. So hope to see you then, and see you soon.